And with that, I say let me pull up my notes here that I so dutifully have put together. And all right, well, we're going to go ahead and kick it off. I know there'll be some other late ones joining. And Chad, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I know several people, probably almost everyone on here knows you, but if not, and for those that are going to be playing at home and watching the recording afterwards, I'm just going to turn it over to Chad Wohlers, and we've got some Q&A. And like I said, if you want to ask questions, this is a perfect time in which to have a candid chance to ask someone who I have great respect for. I have been honored to serve alongside him for many, many years at Village and beyond, and he just does a masterful business. It's grand in its size and scope, and in its execution. So, Chad, if we could tell us a little bit about yourself, your hometown, your favorite soft serve ice cream, and a little background about your business, and then we'll go into some Q&A. How about that?
Yeah, that's perfect. I look forward to the Q&A, and just to kind of preface everybody, like I have no agenda in terms of what I want to communicate or talk about. So
I do, by the way, so don't you worry.
So whatever brings you the most value, like just ask the question and I'll answer it with, everything I know about it. But based on what Ted asked me, I grew up in Nebraska. I moved to Nashville in 2005, fell in love with the city. I moved here through a corporation. They wanted me to leave. I didn't want to leave. So then I transitioned into real estate. So I started my career in 2007-ish at Village. And I was at Village for, I don't know, several years, 7 or 8. And then I went to Parks for a few years, and then I came back to Village. But what drew me to Village is what draws me to Village now is like primarily the people, which is all of y'all and everybody we interact with, but also our footprint in the urban core and how much we care about like community living and building neighborhoods and building communities. And so that's what appealed to me originally at Village was they had every multi-unit listing development in the city at the time, back when like Bristol was doing the majority of the business. And then we kind of got away from that, and now we're kind of like back into that. Now we're getting them all again. So that's just, I was always naturally inclined to that lifestyle and that kind of real estate product. And so I chose a niche that Mark Deutschman back in the day told me, he's like, don't be afraid to niche. You know what I mean? So I chose the niche in the condominium world because I was interested in it and I was fascinated by it and I wanted to live that lifestyle. So it kind of just grew organically from there.
Yeah, and so Chad, explain to us when you first started, when you say you chose it, how did you choose it? Did you start working on developments? Who did you mentor under, and how did you gain the knowledge that you have?
Yeah, so all of the above. Like I definitely chose mentors that they weren't specific to like the high-rise world or the condominium world. They were just more like real estate individuals I respected, like you, Ted, and Fairhead, and John McClanahan, and all the originals at Village. And so I just kind of chose people that I connected with, and I never really had like one official mentor, but I had several people that I would lean on and call and ask for advice, and then just kind of like talk real estate with, like just like when Devin and I met at one of, Mark's developments, we did the same exact thing. We just started talking about real estate, and like I learned from his sales process and he probably learned from what I did walking through the units, and I just try to be close to people I respect and that I felt like I could learn something from, and that I could bring value to them as well. So that was kind of the mentor thing. In terms of the condo world, I just got as close to it as I possibly could. So I always believe you should like get as close to the market that you want to sell in as you possibly can. So put yourself within the market that you want to sell in and you want to create. And now with social media, promote what you want to create more of. So for me, like I got as close to the developments as I could without ever being on the team. But people still think I was on the Icon sales team, and I never was. I was just there all the time, like hanging out at Icon, like learning the floor plans, learning the pricing, helping those team members if they needed something. Like I filled in for Ivy a few times. I filled in for Scott Evans a few times because they knew I knew the product, but I wasn't on the sales team. I just would show up and show the building and get a small piece of the deal if one came together. And I did that with several developments. I did that with all the Bristol developments, Bristol West End, Bristol on Broadway, Velocity, Icon. And then I did that on Rolling Mill Hill. And then I sold a condo project called the Chesterfield that never took off for like a year. I sold that. But I just had a natural inclination toward that lifestyle and that kind of living. And then I just learned everything I could about it.
Yeah, and I love hearing some of those names because that certainly takes us back to some of the first condos. You know, one of the things that we owe great respect to Mark about was this town was a little devoid of urban living, and that was his passion and mission, was to help redevelop downtown. I know, Chad, you witnessed a lot of that. You mentioned Chesterfield and being on development. So I just want to cover a piece before we dig into a little bit more about some of the specialties of condos, is working on a team or in a development. Why would you choose to work on a team versus not? A team being meaning on a development versus being in the role that you typically serve.
Proximity. So if you can be in close proximity to the people that are interested in condo living, and if you can be in front of those people, you'll start to brand yourself with that style of real estate. So proximity is power, obviously, is like a saying that's been going around for a long time. But I wanted to be in proximity to the development. So if I could get on a team, I was in proximity to the developers, the salespeople, the buyers, that market. And a lot of my business has treed out from someone I met on site at Icon, 10 years ago. And I just always wanted to be seen in those places with those developments and those developers, and just keeping close, just staying within your market, I think is highly important.
For sure. And speaking of being seen, you are certainly a man that has been seen. It doesn't hurt that some people think you're easy on the eyes, but tell us about how you built this Instagram account, and where you, who's your hairstylist, and where do you drink coffee mostly and pick up new clients?
So the social media thing for me was a natural evolution. It was a natural development in branding, because it's all stuff that I believe in and that I live, and that's authentic to me. So I think social media is really powerful regarding building a brand and getting people to understand what it is that you're passionate about and what it is that you love in real estate. And it's also a good place to tell a story where as long as you're, in my opinion, as long as you're being authentic and genuine and you're telling the truth, like communicate, whatever you want to communicate, whether it's a win or a loss or an opportunity or a challenge, but also be mindful that you are communicating something on every post. Like, people make fun of me all the time for my Instagram. I don't care, because I like doing it and I enjoy it. And there's always gonna be people that hate on you, and there's probably 100 people that are silent that really like it and enjoy it. You know what I mean? But I kind of wanted to show people what I believe in and what I like to live. And I also wanted to create a brand that was tied to me and was authentic to what I do, that would help me grow more of that same business. So I always tell new agents, I sell homes in Brentwood, but I don't heavily promote that. I'm grateful for that business, but I don't want a bunch of Brentwood business flooding into me, because that's just not my world. That's not my market. But I'll go sell a home in Brentwood happily. But when I do a deal at 505 or 1212, that's what I want to promote, because I want more of that business and I want more of that brand. And once I get those buyers or those sellers, they end up becoming clients. And then I kind of have another business, another referral business, where it's these people now know me and have worked with me and trust me and like me, and they don't care where they go. They don't have to be a high-rise buyer or condo buyer. I'll sell them something in Franklin. So for me, I noticed my business was growing on two different ways. The niche of the high-rise world, those people will call me that have never heard of me. Never met me, never worked with me, but they just heard that I'm the guy, and they can trust me, and I know this about the condo market. They just come to me. And then those people I convert to my client family, and then I keep those people forever, hopefully. And then I sell them anything. I'll sell them Green Hills, I'll sell them Franklin, I'll sell them wherever they want to go. And so then that kind of has built another referral stream and another tree of business from the people that know you and love you are your referrals. And then your niche, people that reach out to you for only reason is branding or image or reputation. So my Instagram is more kind of focused on the branding and the image and the reputation and showing people who I am, which creates a ton of business. And then once when they work with me, then they know it's real. This is who he really is. He cares about me, he cares about my family, my investment. And then they become the client family side of it, But a lot of times they come in just from the post, And that was a long explanation on social media. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. Because I mean, how many followers do you have?
Like 13,000 something, 13.5, something like that.
Yeah, and growing. I like the ticker. And part of how you reinforce that is you live and work and drink and dine in the places that you live. So you live at 1212, correct?
Yes, correct.
And you're a frequent sipper at Barista Parlor and many other coffee. What's your favorite coffee place these days?
Yeah, so that to me is like being within your community too. So like I love coffee shops. I love to work remote, but I like the energy of different environments, but I also like interacting with my community. Like being seen downtown at the Frothy Monkey on Fifth Avenue is like good for my business. Being seen at Barista Parlor in the Gulch is good for my business. You know, being seen at like these different areas in the urban market is good for my business. Like I'm running into people all the time that like, oh, you're the condo guy. Oh, you live at 1212. Oh, you live in the Gulch. And so that is just something I enjoy. That's what I enjoy. That's what I love about real estate. It's like you never know where your next like client's coming from, and you never know what connection you might make in a positive way to someone else that you meet out within the market. And when you're an approachable person, which I can see everybody on this Zoom, like we're all approachable people. So like when you're approachable and you put out that vibe on your social media, people feel comfortable to approach you and talk to you. And then you create a relationship that may or may not lead to business, but you're creating something. And so every day when I go out, I want to create something, and I want to have some kind of meaningful interaction with someone that hopefully I know or I don't know, or maybe you'd be shocked how many people watch us on social media. Like most people don't have the lifestyle that we all have on this Zoom call where we can like drive around and look at real estate and be at a coffee shop. Like they're like stuck in an office like 8 to 5, and people are watching. They're watching you all the time, you know, and you're communicating something. Every time you post a story or something, you're telling them something about who you are, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I mean, there's an entire network and more dedicated to houses, HGTV. I can't stand to watch it, but the world is interested, right? Like it is a common denominator right beside the weather of something everybody interacts with, whether they rent, own, or whatever. And I think sometimes people forget there's no shortage of content. I don't care if you haven't sold a house all year. There is so much stuff to post about and talk about and show you are in the business. And I think, you know, even Chad, you do that well. I mean, I've seen you all the time at like you say, a Frothy Monkey. And when you're at these places, coffee shops, I know some people have made businesses out of that, or they've put a sticker on their computer or set up a sign, but do you interact with new people at these places? And how do you strike up those conversations and create new connections?
Just naturally, organically. Yeah. Like I'm kind of like, I like people and I like talking to people. And if I have an opportunity to speak positivity into someone's life or encouragement, like I'll take that opportunity when it happens. And then just like, I think with how like open and like out there I am on social media, people do feel like they have permission to talk to me. Like, and sometimes it's like, I'm like, I got to get out of here. Like I have too much going on. I got to go to somewhere quiet where people aren't like coming up and saying hi randomly. But it's like an interesting thing that's kind of happened where like people will just approach me randomly and be like, hey, I know you're busy. I follow you on social media. I love your stuff. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, tell me your name. Like, who are you? And then I'll ask them, do I follow you back? And sometimes I don't. And then I'll follow them right there on the spot. You know what I mean? And you just kind of create like you're creating your own community. Like social media is a place to create your own community of people who care about what you're doing. And then if you respond with caring about who they are and what they're doing, like that will just grow and that will become business.
Yeah. So how else have you built your condo brand? I know living at 1212 has been important. Tell us a little bit about some of your marketing. I mean, you've built a following. You've done that with, I know you were kind of a brand ambassador for a company and you got some following that way, but I know you do some mailers. How many mailers do you send out every month?
So the mailers are something that I think is like an underrated thing in real estate. Like I do all the digital stuff, like the social media, like all the internet digital stuff. Like I think that's important, but a hard mailer, like a cardboard postcard or something, I think those are really underrated if you give value to them. So like the mailers that I do, I've focused specifically on the high-rise world, and they take me a long time, but I provide a ton of stats of real information that actually provides value to people. Like it's what do you respond to as a consumer? Like a random marketing piece with a good looking guy or a good looking girl, whatever, you say, throw it away. But if you get something that like has value to you, that's about your neighborhood or, you know, your development, like people will look at those and they'll keep them. I've been on several listing appointments. I'm not making this at all. I've been on several listing appointments. I have no idea where the lead came from. We're walking through their condo. I'm talking to them in the corner of my eye in their office in a pile. I see one of my postcards. I'm like, oh, that's where it came from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
how many do you send? About average, Chad, how many you send a month? Because I think.
Oh, I don't do on average that many a month. I probably send like I probably send at least one card every other month.
Okay.
Because I could probably do them every month and people would be fine with that. But I want to send something that's valuable and that doesn't feel like it's annoying, like they're getting it all the time.
Well, like the great comedian and poet says, if you got 15 haters, you got to be worried about when you're getting 16. Haters are good. And if you ain't got anybody to hate on me. So if you're thinking about sending mailers, where do you send? Do you farm? If you don't have to share, Chad, but I mean, I know people think people, when I ever get a listing in Icon, I'm like, okay, so why didn't you call Chad?
Yeah, no, so I farm the high-rise world because I love the high-rise world and I really enjoy that lifestyle and I know everything about it. So if I'm farming somewhere, I better know like what the crops are in that area. Like I better know, like if someone calls me randomly, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, can I call you back? Like I know everything about all the high-rises. So if like someone calls me from 505 or someone calls me from even developments I don't really like a ton, but if they call me from developments that I'm not a huge fan of, like I know everything about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I farm specific buildings that I'm interested in, that I want business in, and that I fully understand and know. So when I do get that call or that email, it's like, yeah, I'll be there today. You know what I mean? Like I know everything about it when I show up. So just for me, it creates a lot of efficiency. When I do get that lead, I can convert it quickly because I don't have like hesitation, like, oh, I got to learn something about this neighborhood before I call this person back. You know, it's like, I already know. I'm ready.
To me, it's one of the easiest places where you can create notes. Like I have a folder for every development, but I have notes for each one. And like, if you're looking for a memorization skill, the condos are where to do it. What are the things they need to know, Chad? They need to know product mix. Like what is the minimum price point you can get in there? What's the current inventory, bed, bath count? What's your HOA fee? What are some other things you like to make sure you know about these and have always to memory?
Yeah. So if you get like a condo buyer, like a high-rise buyer, they're going to want to know that, you know, like everything that Ted just said, like what's the HOA? What are the leasing restrictions? What's the unit count? Like what's the mix of 1 bedroom versus 2 bedrooms? What are the amenities like? What's the vibe like? You know, like what's the parking like? So you have like kind of the macro and then the micro, and the macro is like, it's 12-12 in the Gulch, but then the micro would be like, there's a pool on the 5th floor. There's a hot tub on the 5th floor. There's a full gym. There's 2 guest suites. You know, there's conference rooms on the first floor.
Yeah, and how much are the guest suites? There's a dog wash station. What is can I rent out the facility for a private party? Guest parking is a big one that a lot of people like. There's buildings, if you go to Encore, guess how many visitor spaces there are? It rhymes with 0. None. Yeah. There is not one. So it's a real problem when Bridgestone built that you can't even to show a property there. And that's another thing that I encourage people. If you're going to start selling condos, don't wait till you have that buyer to go show. You better show and know every condo that your prospective buyers may consider, because if they want to go over to, even the Rhythm or Element, or you got to know where to park. You don't want to be on the job training. What other things, Chad, should people do besides learning their stats and their numbers about showing condos and helping buyers show condos? It's very different than single family.
Yeah, I think you just touched on one of the most important parts is like, whenever I meet other agents or other agents call me about showing one of my high-rise listings, their biggest concern is like, they don't know like where to park, how to get in the building, like it's like the basic stuff that like a client or a buyer is going to know, that like, Chad has never been in this building. Like, oh, that's kind of concerning. Like if you don't know the leasing restrictions, like they're going to probably be okay. Cause you can be like, oh, I'll find out. Every building usually has leasing restrictions. Like some of them are 15%, some of them are 25%, some of them have no leasing restrictions. If you have that general knowledge of how a high-rise world works, the buyer is going to give you grace not knowing the exact leasing restrictions for that building. I don't know all the leasing restrictions for every single building. I know them for my big ones, like my main towers. But like whenever I call Devin or, you know, about what he's got, he'll tell me like, oh, at this one is the leasing restrictions are X, Y, and Z. But I know the questions to ask before I walk to the door. But you should know like the big things, like what you said, Ted, like where to park, do you have to get the key from the concierge, or is the lockbox at the door? Like, just so you can like flow the process well, and it feels like you've been there before, like you've been in the building before. You're not like asking the concierge, is the pool on 7 or is it on 8? You know what I mean? Like you just want to know when you get there. So if you know the big things, a lot of the little things will work themselves out. Like if you know the amenities at 1212 are on 5, and you know they're all on 5, then you go to 5 and you start walking down the hallway like you've been there before, and like, here's the pool, it has a hot tub, here's the gym. But if you don't know they're on 5 and you got to ask the concierge what floor the amenities are on, that's a little embarrassing in person with your client, you know?
Well, yeah, and so much more, because even though you know they're on 5, like they may not know, but it's important that you know this is a saltwater pool. It's heated year round. You know, are kids allowed in here? Is there a maximum number of people? What are COVID restrictions? What if a glass bottle breaks and they have to drain the pool? Is that going to be an assessment? These are all real things that these condos are dealing with. What's going on with the gyms? Some of the gyms have private training sessions. Yeah. Can you bring in your own personal trainer?
And confused buyers don't make decisions. Like if they're confused, they don't make decisions. And if you don't have a lot of the information, they're going to be confused. Like so Tony Giarratana just hired me to sell some of his 505 condos. And the first thing I did was like sit down with his right-hand person.
Is that what happened there? Huh? Tell me what happened at 505, because it seems like everybody, what did he just like say, okay, I'm going to split a handful amongst a bunch? What happened?
Yeah, 28 units are left that the developer still has. And he split them up between 4 agencies and 4 agents, which was kind of messy and kind of confusing. So now we like co-listed all each other's stuff. So it's still like confusing, but like most things in life, for me, it's like, I'm just going to show up and perform, and like, I'm going to do my best to sell, whether it's my listing or someone else's listing, because we can sell all each other's stuff, right? But if you just show up and work and do your best, you're going to sell more than your competition. Like I'm going to sell more than those other agents at 505, because like I'm willing to go show up and work if it's my listing or not my listing, because we can sell each other's stuff. You know what I mean? But like, so back to what I was saying, with Jenny works with Tony. The first thing I did when I got that listing is I had like 35 questions about the building. Like how much is it to rent one of the cabanas? You know, like how long do you get it? What about a holiday? You know what I mean? So like, those are things buyers will ask when you're like walking around showing an acre of amenities and they see these cool cabanas. They're like, oh, can we rent those? Like, and like, yeah, they're 150 for 4 hours. On holidays, they're 250 for 4 hours. You know what I mean? Like, and they're like, oh, that's super cool. Versus me being like, yeah, I'm sure you can rent them, probably. I don't know. Let me find out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And they're like, well, this guy doesn't know about this. What else does he not know about in this building? You know what I mean? And so I just try to learn all those little details. And I do what you said earlier, Ted, is I walk through the building by myself and I pretend to be that buyer. Like, what do I want to know? You know what I mean? Like, what would be important to me? Like, what are the hours of the gym? You know, like, what are the hours of the pool? Can you have pets out here? How many pets per unit? Like all the things that those condo buyers care about. What's the HOA? What does it cover? Because it covers different things in different buildings. And then you can kind of start figuring out what's best for your client. Like, you know, they want a bigger condo and a smaller HOA with less amenities, or they don't care about the size of the condos. They want the amenities, or, you know, the 505 is not for them because they only get 1 parking space with a 2-bedroom, you know, like it just depends.
I'm going to tell him myself here. I feel so guilty. This is hilarious. I have never stepped foot in 505.
Come on. We're having an event this Thursday. Y'all should come to it. We're having a broker event.
All right. I'm in. I've never sold one. I've never been in it. I have to admit I was a hater because I didn't like several things about it, that they did mixed use with other rentals. So the rentals are gone, right? Or there's no short term in there anymore, correct?
No, yeah, Stay Alfred went out of business due to COVID, so they converted them all to rentals. So the first 29 stories in that building are all 100% rentals. So 1 through 29 are rentals, and then 30 through 45 are the condos. And then this kind of goes back to knowing the building. Like 505 is broken down. Like you have two different lobbies for the renters and the condo owners. You have two different elevator banks. So you skip all the rental floors when you're going to the condos. The amenities are shared on 7, but they're exclusive on 8 to the condo owners. So these are all the things that people want to know. And like, well, we heard there were short-term rentals in here. Well, there were. Here's what happened. Like, as long as you have the information and you tell people on the front end, like people can handle the truth, as long as you know, just.
And, I keep a note for every development, and I keep a folder. So anytime I get HOA documents for a building, and I'm going to add this to our shared drive at Village under the agent toolkit. If you're not familiar, we do have an agent toolkit shared drive in Google Drive. And in there, I've put some of the class documents from all of these, such as the net sheets that have been shared in their courses, and the short-term sheets that Deborah Volley shared. And I'm going to add in there all the folders for the development. So anytime you get HOA docs, dump them in there so we have access to those. So talking about that, Chad, and you mentioned rental restrictions, some of the things that aren't as maybe as sexy as the parking or the pool is, I know some other questions inside the units, like unit specific. What units, there's not a lot of places that have like gas cooking, or if it is it vented to the exterior as far as cooking? What are other questions you get inside the units that you hear a lot?
Yeah, gas is a good one. Like, what units have gas? People like to know when they're buying in a high-rise world, they're also buying the neighborhood around them. And they're always super concerned, like what's coming up, what's being built that could potentially affect my view. So it's good to know, like, if I'm at 1212 and I'm looking out the windows, I can tell people what's supposed to happen next and what's been proposed. And then you always want to tell them like the truth of what you know, and then always tell them like this could change. Like, this is what we know now. Like, like in the Gulch, for example, like Market Street owns everything, and Market Street's told me that the first lot they were going to develop was the one across from Barry's Boot Camp, which they did. It's that 5-story commercial building with Lululemon at the bottom. Then Market Street told me the second lot they're going to develop is the one across from 1212 on the west side, which is that huge parking lot between Turnip Truck and 1212. That's going to be a massive high-rise. And then the third lot they're going to develop will have to be a joint partnership with another big development company, which is the one on the corner of Demumbrian and 12. It's a massive parking lot across from Milk and Honey, which that'll be like 2 high-rises. And so I tell people this stuff. It's like, we don't know when, and if it goes in this order, this is what Market Street's told me. This is the next one, that's the next one. They're gonna do towers. Your view will be affected, but it's probably gonna be in a positive way most of the time. Like, if you know, and if you believe that, like, people were freaking out about the W Hotel, and now people are so fired up about it in my building. But for a long time, they're all freaking out, like, our views are gonna be ruined in construction. And it was like, y'all, it's a parking lot with barbed wire around it right now. Like, you want it to stay that, or do you want the W Hotel? And now people are fired up, about it. So it's like the unknown is what people get concerned with, and it slows them down in their decision-making process. So I try to know as much of what's known and communicate that, but then I'm also very aware to tell them, like, this could change. Like, I mean, I've gotten several clients that they were mad at the past agent who told them something like, they'll never build higher than 3 stories over here. And then they bought it based on that information, and then that building went 5 and took their view, and now they hate that agent. So I always tell people, like, this is what I know. They could change it. It's like the W Hotel was, the ordinance in the Gulch is, if you're in the interior of the Gulch, it's only supposed to be 12 stories, which is where Thompson topped out at. The W Hotel is going like 17 because the city gave them more floors because they went LEED certified. They added public parking. They added things that the city likes, so the city gave them more floors. So I always like try to communicate that stuff to people. Like, this is like what the ordinance is, could be different. It could change, So people like to know what's happening around their development in urban areas. Like Wedgwood, Houston is like, people love hearing about Soho House, and people love hearing about Apple Music, and like downtown, whenever I'm selling 505, I know everything about, 5th and Broadway, the new development that's a $500 million development right on the corner of Broadway and 5th. I know as much as you can know about the Nashville Yards, because people love the story, when they're buying in the high-rise. They love the story of what's happening around them. Same reason people love the story of like residential neighborhoods, like, where's the park? Where's the school district? Like, it's kind of the same thing. It's just a different mindset.
Yeah, but it's what I think it's important for those that like I said, that are on here or haven't really specialized into selling condos, you don't dip a toe in this. This isn't like, oh, I'm going to go sell, Hillsborough Village and I know they're getting a new burger joint, right? Like, I mean, there is a lot going on in our urban core, and you can see, I mean, Chad is expert level, but you do need to know the neighborhood. And like, even when the Encore, they lost all their views facing westward when the Bridgestone was built. Yeah. Guess what happened to their values? They dipped and then they went up. And some people bailed because they're like, oh, or they faced the river and they were losing their river views because now they're staring at a Drury Inn. It's like, it does everything for your neighborhood. So you've got to help them understand the lifestyle that they're buying. One of those things they're giving up is storage. So that's another thing. Ask, some places have storage, or what are they going to do with their stuff? And so you're going to maybe get a lot of downsizers. Who are you seeing as the biggest audience? Give us your top 3 buyer pool that are coming into the urban core right now.
Ooh, there's a lot of local Nashville people that moved here. They're part of that 80 to 100 people a day for the last 10 years, and they've been renting in the urban world, and they're just tired of renting, and they want to get into a building that they can invest in. So there's that buyer pool for sure. Like, just the younger professionals, and young's obviously a relative term. Like, I probably wouldn't be considered the young professional anymore, but like those people are that coming out of the rental world that want to invest in something like in a high rise. And then a lot of second home individuals that love Nashville. Like, I do a lot of that business where they want to, for tax purposes or wealth preservation, they want a piece of our city. And so they're coming into the high rise world because it's a turnkey environment, and it's not something they got to worry about. You got an HOA protecting your building, your investment, your amenities, so they can just roll into town and enjoy Nashville and roll out of town. So there's a lot of those people, like second home, kind of wealth preservationist type individuals who want into our market. The condo that I'm doing a big deal this week, $4.5 million, 505, $4.5 million condo sold at 505. And the guy just bought it because he wants a crash pad in Nashville. It's the only reason. Closes this week.
You're the buyer's agent or listing agent?
Listing agent.
Is that your biggest sale?
Yeah, for sure.
That's a whopper, man. That's awesome, Dad. Holy smokes.
Crazy.
The 4-5 crash pad. The 4-5 crash pad.
Isn't that wild? That's like that's the kind of market we're getting now. There's a lot of people like that they want a piece of Nashville because Tennessee is so favorable regarding taxation and things like that, and just the growth of the city, that there's a lot of money flowing in the high-rise world. For those people is like a good decision for them, because like I said before, it's an easy thing to do. You don't got to like worry about your yard or security, or you just, and so I guess that'd be 2. And then 3, I would say a lot of my other business in the high-rise world just comes from people moving around. They're selling their smaller 1-bedroom and they want a bigger 2-bedroom within the same building, or Icon's not as hot as it was, now they want into 1212, or 1212's not as hot as it was, now they want into the Four Seasons, or now they want into Broad West. Like, they kind of just bounce around, which that's what I've done. I went from building to building to building because I love the lifestyle, and you want to become more in life, and you want to like grow your lifestyle. And so there's been a lot of that too, where people just kind of upgrade within their building or to a new building.
Well, I want you to keep this in mind, and we're going to come back to this at the end. I want you to think about what's your favorite building, the most improved, who's done the best renovation and most improved, and what's hot and new that you love. So we'll come back to that at the end. Let's talk associations and considerations when representing buyers. What things do you need to find out about an association, or do you ask for when you write a contract in a building? These buildings so well and become quite intimate with them, but what would you suggest as a buyer's agent that hasn't done a ton of experience? What things should we be writing in our contracts and asking for with respect to HOA or otherwise?
Yeah, so I personally get a little annoyed when I get a list like this big from some buyer's agents, where they're just like, they want like all this crazy stuff. But I also like have to kind of step out of my seller shoes and be like, well, this buyer's agent doesn't know the building and they're just protecting their buyer. So I understand why they're asking for this huge list. But I think all that's really important is like, definitely get the master deed, the bylaws, so that your client understands like what are the restrictions regarding leasing or, things like that. Definitely ask for the financials. but you don't need like 2 years of HOA minutes. You know what I mean? Like you can ask for like the last 2 meetings of HOA minutes. So when I get like the small requests like that, like I understand that the buyer's agency is protecting the buyer. So I think it's smart to ask for, if you don't know the building, which I know them, so I don't ask for them usually on my contracts. But if you don't know the building, you're trying to protect your buyer, definitely ask for the master deed, the bylaws, the financials, maybe insurance declaration, and like some HOA minutes. Like that's fine. Those are pretty easy to get. But most of the time, you can save yourself a ton of time too. If your buyer has a specific use or a specific plan for that condo, you can help move them around. Like if someone called me and they said, I want to live in the best high rise for a year, and then I definitely want to rent it out as an investment, there's buildings I know that's never going to happen. Like if you come into Encore, you're never getting a leasing permit within a year. It's like, it's not going to happen. So like you can tell that buyer, you can do that at Icon, because at Icon you can rent anytime. But if you want to live in a high rise and then rent it out in a year, it's not going to work at Encore. It's not going to work at Alicia. It's not going to work at 1212. It's not going to work at Rhythm. It will work. You can do it at Terrazzo. You know, you can do it at Icon. There's different buildings where you can do that.
You can do it at the James.
What's that?
Said you can do it at the James.
You can do it at the James. You can save yourself a ton of time kind of learning what that buyer is looking for long term. You know, or
save them a ton of time. I always say this is a process of elimination, not finding a perfect house. So
right.
let's find out what you want to use this thing for. Like you say, if you're going to have, you know, a lot of guests, or you're going to need this, you're going to want to flip this thing in 2 years. What are we going to see is going to happen?
Mm-hmm. And then I listen to like the kind of lifestyle they tell me they want to live. And then I start to think, well, this could be, and I never want to assume I know what's best for the client, but I'll tell them like, sounds to me like you're this building, you know, what I'm hearing, but let's look at all of them. But this is what it sounds like. Like you want to fly to Nashville, Uber to your high rise and be done, and walk to like what makes Nashville Nashville. That's like a downtown, you know, 505 or Meridian or Encore. Like there's people like that where they just, once they're in Nashville, they don't want to touch a car. They want to walk to the Symphony. They want to walk to the Titans game. They want to walk to Bridgestone. They want to walk to Lower Broadway. Like those are your downtown core buyers, you know?
Yep. Oh goodness, I just lost my question. Well, one other thing, is there anything else you ask a condo buyer? You mentioned their lifestyle, really important. Obviously, if they want to lease, that's probably one of the biggest, right? I mean, so these buildings differ in leasing, and you know, some buildings didn't create restrictions. Like Icon, they just left it as a grab bag. There is no restrictions. And what's your opinion on rental restrictions and how they affect, you know, what's your thoughts on it? Should buildings have them or not, or is it nice to have a mix?
They should have them. I have a love-hate relationship with it, because it is nice to have the flexibility of Icon, where it's like, if I want to live in it for a year and rent it for a year and move back into it, I can do that. Like that's nice to have that flexibility. But at the same time, Icon's like 30+% rentals right now. Like they're getting a lot of rentals. And if it goes past that 50% mark, then your buildings can be in trouble financially, because now you can't get loans on the building. You know, when a lender looks at the condo docs, like lenders do, I can't think of the condominium questionnaire. When they look at that, when they see it's like 52% rentals, they won't lend on it unless you get like a portfolio loan or you go cash, which is what stopped Bristol on West End from really going up. Like they hit a ceiling there, and they kind of gone up really slowly, but you couldn't get a loan on that building for 10+ years. You couldn't get a loan on it.
I don't know that you still can. There is some specialty lenders I own in there. I was an original buyer. I think you had it one time too, Chad. And I mean, basically it's Vanderbilt housing. I mean, it's right there by the med campus, and it's a great building for that, but it's over 50% rental. And so be aware, if your buyer is getting a loan, you need to find that out too. If they're cash or they're getting a loan, some of these buildings were FHA approved and are not now, or still could get FHA approval. So those are some other things to consider as representing buyers, is what their financing considerations are. In addition to, let's talk new construction, and let's talk down payments and considerations when considering new construction as a condo or a high-rise buyer.
So what are you asking? Like down payment?
Yeah, so I mean, if somebody says I want to buy new construction, what should you prepare them for with respect to down payment and timelines and process?
Yeah, that would be very similar and parallel to what happens in the single family home with new construction. It's kind of the same thing for a tower. Like Broad West, for example, they're projecting like a year completion and they want 10% down now. So if you bought at Broad West, you bought $1 million condo right now, they want 10% down for you to go hard on the contract. And then you wait a year until it's complete. And then once it gets closer to being complete, then you go through your blue tape, your inspection, all that kind of stuff, and then you close on it. But like a single family home new construction, it could be a year and a half. You know what I mean? So it's like you always just want to prep your, like I always try to under promise and over deliver. You know what I mean? It's like it could be a year if they're on schedule, but it could take a year and a half. So if you're good with a year and a half, just know that's a real possibility. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and it depends on the development. Like some developments want 10%, some want 20%, and it just depends on, you know, whatever construction development you're buying in. But there's really not a lot of new construction other than Broad West and Four Seasons for the high-rise world.
Yeah, we won't ask what's your favorite between the two of those, but how do you explain to buyers when they're questioning? Do you remember the days when they're like, $200 a square foot? Are you kidding?
Oh,
So I know when people bought 1212, I was a bit of a naysayer that they wanted, I think, 10% down up front, which was unheard of at that time. And that was like a 2-year build. Ray Hensler, he's a master in our market of building quality buildings. And how much further can it go up? Don't you get that question? Can this really go up more in value? Well, how do you answer that?
that's a long answer because I mean, the market has like, I've been right and I've been wrong on a lot of different things. Like when I brought my buyers into 1212, I ended up very fortunately bringing like 18 buyers into that building. And every single one of them, I told them, we're buying at the top of Nashville's market. So just know that like, this is like the top right now, like in terms of price per square foot. Like I believe in the future of Nashville. I believe in the future of the Gulch. I think we're going to be rewarded for this move, but it's high and just know it's high. And then like in hindsight now, like we all look like geniuses because 1212 just had a huge jump in value that no one really predicted. Like every single person I brought in has 200K in equity in that building as of today, as of the market right now. And a lot of them made a lot more. Some of them made like 400K on their units. Like, but that was kind of like in hindsight, there was just so much scarcity. 1212 was the first tower since 2008 and 1212 delivered in 2015. So we almost went 10 years without a new tower. And the timing was just perfect with that building too. Like everything just kind of hit. And now we have other buildings pushing the market, like Four Seasons. Like I've had people interested in Four Seasons and I'm telling those people like, just please stay there for like 5 to 8 years. Cause like 1,500 a foot for Nashville, like seems kind of silly, but people are buying them and it feels high to me, but the market will either prove that wrong or right. But I'm just telling my people like, please stay there for like at least 5 years. Like, and then Broad West, on the other hand, like I feel like there's money to be made on Broad West. I feel like their pricing is much more market than Four Seasons.
I agree. And it's different, you know, they're very different locations. And I think there's very different offerings there. They're different lifestyles. I mean, don't count that inside the 40 loop, what I call downtown versus midtown is the same lifestyle. You're 3 blocks over and you're in a different vibe. Entirely. And so
and you got to follow the vibe of your client. Like if I was questioning the financial outcome of his purchase at Four Seasons, he'd probably been like, dude, I don't care, I want to own it Four Seasons. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But some people like, they're like, can I make money on Broad West? I'm like, yeah, I think you can make money, and here's the unit I think is probably gonna have the best jump, traditionally speaking, for a high-rise world. Like, you know, everyone knows corner units always do the best, generally speaking, but depending on that buyer and what they're looking for, and if they are sensitive to having a return on that investment within how many years, I'll give them different advice, you know. But like my guy at Four Seasons, had I like started pushing back on like, man, this feels too high, I don't know if you're gonna make money on this, he'd probably been like, I don't care, like I just want him to Four Seasons. Like it's a different kind of buyer. Like some Four Seasons buyers are like, they don't care if they make money on it. They just want to be in the Four Seasons.
Yeah,
I'm not that buyer. Like I want to make money on it, but some buyers, like they don't care. So
and you know, they're very likely to make a lot of money. It's a different concept and lifestyle, you know, not because of its neighborhood, but because of its amenities that they're trying to position and offer there. So,
and typically those owners don't panic. If the market goes south, they don't panic sell. Like a lot of those Four Seasons type of people, they don't panic when the market goes south. They'll just hold it. They don't care. Whereas some other buildings, you can feel some market shifts. You know, if the market goes south a little bit, people will panic sell a little bit, which will change the value of the building on a very short term, which we saw a little bit of that this year in the high-rise world. There's some panic selling. And like our job as realtors is to advise our clients and kind of cool them down when they are freaking out a little bit. But then if they want to slash the price to sell it, you got to let them slash the price to sell it. But I've told a lot of my people in the high-rise world, like, the COVID disruption is short term. Like, people are scared of certain things right now. And this is kind of like a few months ago. It's kind of gone now. But I had some sellers who were like freaking out. Like, they wanted to sell immediately. And I was like, just hold on. You know, just wait. And I was like, if you want to sell it, I'll sell it. But we don't need to slash the price on this because you're afraid of the pandemic. Like, I want to get you out of here and I'll serve you the best I can. But like, this is a market number that will sell it. You don't have to drop it to X to sell it. And that's like the panic sellers. They're like, just get me out, just put it at whatever, you know? And so
Yep.
you don't see that in some buildings.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is, where's the sleeper buy? Where do you think some of the best money to be made on a condo, be it, you know?
Yeah, so I have different opinions on all the buildings. Like, I think the Gulch is definitely probably the best spot for long-term profitability and long-term returns. Broad West, you know, I don't know who said this, maybe, I don't know, the pioneers get paid. Someone told me that a long time ago in real estate. Broad West, you're a bit of a pioneer. I mean, that's obviously a great area in terms of where you are when you just look at a map. But when you're there, you have a lot of rough area around you, just like you had a lot of rough area around you at Icon in the beginning. You know what I mean? And then the neighborhood built up. So Broad West, I think, is a bit of a pioneer move, but the island of Broad West is going to be incredible. Like, once you're there, but you're probably not going to walk to a lot of stuff around you. And so that's kind of where, if you're willing to go through the pain of new construction, like what I went through in the Gulch, you generally will get rewarded for that. So
yeah, you're right. When we moved in Icon, I mean, people looked around and I kept saying, look for vacant land, because vacant land means new opportunities, right? That's why Wedgwood Houston was such a hit. That's why the Gulch, because it was a wasteland for a while and it gave opportunity of a master developer to go in. You know, Midtown used to be the thing. The Adelicia was the hottest property in town.
completely
And then it became College Bar Row and nobody necessarily wanted to. So I think there's a resurgence for Midtown. And you look around there, there's land
the
to be
Virgin
had.
Hotel is a huge win for Midtown. That's like a super popular spot for locals, the coffee shop, the rooftop. I was there yesterday. Brian Stoltzfus and Erica were having their anniversary celebration at the Virgin Hotel. So I ran into them randomly. So that's like a big win for Midtown and bringing it to life. And then Broad West is going to be a big win for Midtown. And then what's happening on the east side of Broad West with the Jim Reed dealership, that's going to be huge. There's like 4 or 6 towers planned there if it gets passed. So I think long term, like that's a great play. But you also have different plays that are more probably like less, you have to wait less for that neighborhood to be established. Like the W is almost done, and that's going to change the Gulch in a positive way. So 1212 makes sense financially because 1212 had its jump and now it's kind of been treading water a little bit. And there's probably another jump in the future for it when the Amazon effect takes place. Like if you study what Amazon's done in other markets, like it's wild. So if that happens in Nashville, like that Amazon effect is going to be a big deal. All what's happening with the Nashville Yards is a big deal. Just like Soho House is a big deal for Wedgwood Houston. Like people love having those stories, and the buildings closest to those areas are generally going to do the best. Like the reason why Adelicia, in my opinion, took such a fall was because what you said earlier, like it became like the drunken bar row of like Lower Broadway right there. Like Winners, Losers, Rebar. It's just a mess there for a while. And they finally cleaned that up a little bit with like a noise ordinance. Like they had to shut it down a certain hour, but like that hurt Adelicia. Adelicia was leading our market in every category for a long time. And recently it's just dove. It's just taken a huge dive. And there might be, it's probably getting to the point now where it's a buy again, because I mean, you're getting back down to like 500 a foot at Adelicia right now on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you're averaging like 650 a foot and up to 1,000 if it's a downtown corner, you know, if it's got views.
Yeah, the Adelicia was definitely the darling for a while. We're getting some questions come in here, and repair proposals. You know, obviously you don't have an exterior necessarily to contend with, but what do you see as most common problems on inspection and repair proposals?
Well, the best part about the high-rise world is what you said earlier, Ted. It's a steel and concrete box. So there's usually not a ton of issues like with the inspection, which is a beautiful thing because the inspection process slows us realtors down more than anything. It's like trying to figure that out. So your general things that you always see in the high-rise world is like the HVAC needs service. There's a couple GFCI breakers that aren't flipping. It's just like random things like that. Like the inspections are usually pretty kind. The only time you get into a little challenge is if like there's some exterior issues that's technically on the HOA. And so what I always do if I represent the seller is I tell the buyer side, like, we'll submit these to the HOA. We'll show you proof that we submitted these to the HOA, but we won't guarantee that they get completed before closing because they likely won't, you know?
Great.
And if you're on the buyer side and the buyer really is concerned about an exterior issue with the HOA, make sure you write verbiage that states we will close after the HOA successfully remedies this. Because sellers agents will tell you like, oh, the HOA will take care of this. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah, it's probably never going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you feel like the deal's not going to close because of that exterior item, the HOA is not addressing it, then you need to flip it to some kind of credit. Like, hey, seller, like, we're willing to take this issue knowing the HOA is probably not going to get to it maybe for 6 months or a year, but for us to close like and feel good about dealing with the HOA, like we need a credit of X amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or maybe
Devin and I just did this on one of his deals. Like we know the HOA is probably not going to get to it for like a year. So it's like I represented the buyer on this deal. So it's like I want to find a scenario where I don't tell my buyer like it's going to be okay. The HOA is going to take care of it. Don't worry about it. Because then when that doesn't happen, which is likely, that buyer's going to be pissed at me.
Yeah.
So I told my buyer, like, let's get a credit from the seller so you feel good and you're happy to close. And then if the HOA remedies it, great. If they don't, you got your credit, you feel good. And I make sure that they feel good with that because that's the most likely outcome. Like when we can't control it, when it's a house, when it's an association, like that's a tough thing to give promises to, you know?
Yeah. For sure. Hey, Chad, where do you stay up to date on proposed developments? What are you reading? Who are you talking to? How do you stay in the know of what the hell's going on?
Some of it's just as simple as driving around and looking at stuff that's being built. Like I do that all the time. I go for jogs, I go for walks, I go for runs. Sometimes I just grab a coffee and drive around. Because Nashville now is a city, like Brian Stoltzfus and I were laughing about this yesterday at the Virgin because we're on the rooftop and we're looking at all these buildings being built. And Brian's asked me like, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And I knew about all of them, but there was one real tall building. I still don't know what it is. I need to drive by it. I was like, I don't know what that is, which is crazy. 10 years ago, you would have known exactly what that one building being built would have been, you know, because we just weren't building towers like we are now. And so the Business Journal for sure, have a membership to that, the National Business Journal, pay for that because they send articles daily that keep you in the know. Stay close to developers, like what Mark's doing and like what Tony Giarratana's doing and Ray Hensler's doing. Talk to people like me who just know, like it's our business to know. Like I know Tony has 4 towers planned over the next 3 years and the public only knows he has 2 planned. You know what I mean? But like I just know because I've seen them. And so like kind of like figure out who your sources are and like stay close to those people and like, you know, in a fun, positive, value-added way, like give them information, they give you information. Like don't like call people and just try to get information because that gets annoying. Yeah. People won't take your calls after a while. But definitely the National Business Journal, and then just like driving around looking at stuff. Like there's like that building Brian and I are talking about. Like I need to know what that is. It's right next to the Graduate Hotel. The Graduate's done. It's a beautiful building. I've been to their coffee shop. Shocker. But there's a building right next to it that's being built. I don't know what it is. I need to know what that is. It's probably a hotel, but I don't know. And so I'll drive by there. I'll look at the signage. If I can't figure it out from the signage, I'll Google the address. If I can't figure it out from the address, I'll call some of my people and be like, hey, what is this being built over here? Because like, I need to know. I want to know.
Yeah. Deborah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unmute you. Deborah, ask your question. I'm not sure I'm totally clear about what you're asking Chad there.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering if you've noticed any like upward or downward trend with pre-sales, and maybe Broad West is really the only one that you have to kind of gauge it from. with the market just fluctuating slightly there for a second with COVID, I don't know if you've seen anything with pre-selling, being able to sell those effectively with the marketing materials now needing to be more digital. And is it easier or no change to sell that story to the buyer with that pre-sale?
So I think pre-sales, you're always selling like the vision, and once you understand it yourself and you're naturally excited about the product and you believe in it because you've like done your due diligence on it, I think that's the biggest part of pre-sales. Like I know as much as can be known about Four Seasons, and I've got as close to that development as I can get, even though they're keeping it tight to the chest in there. Like it's hard to figure out what's going on at Four Seasons. And so you just got to do your best due diligence to figure out what you know about it, and then go down there and hang out. Like know what's around the Four Seasons. Like go to Hampton Social and have brunch, go to Union Commons and have brunch, because you're selling the vision when it's a pre-sale, right? So you kind of want to start with the macro and then go to the micro. So like when someone calls me about Broad West, I kind of go through the process we just went through on this Zoom. It's like, here's what's happening with the Jim Reed site. Here's what's happening with Virgin Hotel, the Graduate's right down the street. Here's what the Graduate's like. And then you kind of go to Broad West, like it's got the courtyard in the middle. It's almost half an acre. It's got the commercial tower on this side. If you get to the 29th floor, you overlook the commercial tower. Like once you have all the information, you can kind of start selling the vision of it. Because if someone's interested in a pre-sale, they believe in the future of Nashville. And they believe that it's going up. So if they don't think the market is going up, they're not going to buy a pre-sale. If they think the market's going to like tread water or go down, they're going to wait to see a finished product. And generally in our market, historically, in most markets, you do well on pre-sales. Sometimes you get burned. If you buy something in the hot market on a pre-sale and the market shifts on you when you're going to close, like you could get burned. And that's when you see people walking away from contracts. Like it's what happened in 2008 in Nashville. And
that's why these higher, and there's a good clarification there. Bonnie said, Broad West is a 20% deposit. It used to be, believe it or not, you could put a deposit was $5,000 for a 1-bedroom and $7,500 for a 2 at Icon. That was all the skin in the game. So when the market crashed, some people walked away. Callie, isn't that funny? Or she got a great meme. But like Terrazzo went through an auction process when that crashed. So I don't know. I mean,
you're not going to walk away for 20%.
You're not walking away from that. Yeah, they would gladly let you out for 20%.
And so I think the art of pre-sales is just getting people to understand. Well, first of all, finding out if they believe in the future of Nashville. Do they believe in the vision? And do they believe that if we do enter a correction in our Nashville market, are we going to come out of it and be stronger? Because if you can ride out the storm, you're always going to be fine. It's like when people say like the stock market took all their money. The stock market's never taken $1 from anybody. It's when you sell that you lost your money in the stock market. So if you just hold and you ride out the storm, you're going to be rewarded if your city is a progressive growing city, and Nashville is. So I'll always have that conversation with people. So like if I have a client who wants to buy a Broad West, I'll tell them I believe they're going to make money on that the day they close. I think you'll have positive equity on Broad West the day you close. I do believe that. But if all of a sudden there's a crazy pandemic, or something else happens next year and the market shifts and they're looking at a negative position on Broad West, they would have been informed by me that's like, you got to ride out that storm now. Like, yeah, it doesn't feel good to close on a negative position, but like, if you believe in where Nashville's going, you're going to get it back. Like it's going to come back. It's like,
yeah. Are you seeing it? Have you seen it? I know we're going over today, folks, but it's, I'm doing it because I think this is good stuff. Have you seen a dip because of COVID, and how do you have that conversation? Whereas, the bars aren't open and we're seeing the flee right back to the suburban life. Is this happening? Are you feeling it? What's up with that?
Yeah, it definitely happened. And I did what I do in most situations that I don't fully understand is I started calling other agents that I knew and I respect and that I value their opinion. And I'm like, because I live in it. And sometimes when you're so close to something, you can't see it very objectively, right? So like I live in the high-rise world. So it's like, sometimes I need to step back and get other people's perceptions of it. And so I got a lot of good advice that when people were told me this, I was like, damn, that's right. Because for me, I never had any fear of COVID. I respect it. I'll do what society wants me to do, but I never I've never cared really about the fear side of it, right? But talking to other agents, they're like, my client's afraid of shared elevators. They're afraid of shared amenities. They're afraid of, like everything that made the high-rise world attractive and fun, people got concerned with, like pools being shared, gyms being shared, communities, close proximity. Like everyone had hesitations with that for a hot minute. And some people still do. And I have clients that are still selling purely because they want out due to COVID, but there's people coming right in their spot.
Yep.
We're just not pushing pricing like we used to. We're not tanking pricing, but there's definitely been a market COVID discount, like in the high-rise world, where like things need to be really priced attractively and then they sell. But we're not like slashing pricing.
Yeah.
But there's definitely been a movement.
A little softening, if you will. It's slowed a little bit, and let's hope that's the worst of it, because in my opinion, I think, Christmas is coming. I mean, it's been 10 years we've been on the rise, right? It's not if, it's when. It's an election year, and so if you're not preparing people that prices could shift, I don't think we'll get hammered. But I think our market in general, as all markets, are gonna experience a 7 to 15% correction at some point. Do you disagree, Chad?
I mean, I thought there was a correction coming for like the last 5 years, and it hasn't happened. I feel like we keep kicking it down the road. So I don't know, maybe. I mean,
yeah,
the fundamentals are still really strong. I mean, the stock market's getting hit hard this week. The NASDAQ's getting tanked this week, but a lot of people are taking profits is what the general narrative is right now, that people are just taking profits because the market took a huge correction in March. The stock market took a huge correction in March and April, and then it was just on a tear again, like surpassing previous levels, and now it's getting corrected again. So But the good news is about like the high-rise world specifically, there's not a lot of inventory to tank the market. So when 2008 happened, you had an almost empty Icon, an almost empty Terrazzo, Fifth and Main. You had a ton of these buildings that had a ton of developer inventory. So when the correction hit, you had single entities with multiple units that needed to unload them. Now we don't have any of that in the market other than Broad West and Four Seasons. So like if we did have a major correction in the high-rise world, it's all individual owners now, whether or not they panic or not. It's not one guy or girl who has 200 units at a building that freaks out and slashes the pricing.
Yeah.
So that's a positive, that if there is a correction coming, at least there's not a lot of inventory to really jack up the market. Yeah,
absolutely true. Thank you. John, your question about pricing, I think it's a great one here. Chad, he was asking, when you're pricing condos, are you using comps strictly in that building, or when do you decide to include other buildings and expected trends when pricing a listing? Like what goes into that for you?
Yeah, so pricing the condo, like all real estate, you have the science and the art of it. And so the science is obviously like looking at the comps within the building. And in the high rise, you want to compare the stack, if the stack is special. So like if it's a corner unit facing downtown, like you really want to just compare the stacks of that corner unit. But if it's a more average condo, like maybe it's an interior 1 bedroom, looking north, and there's several floor plans that are basically the same kind of view and vibe and lighting, they're just sized differently, then I'll look at all of those stacks to kind of see where mine fits in. And then you also need to really go look at the product. Like a good example is like there's a stack at 1212 called the 04 stack, which when we talk in stacks in high-rise world, it's basically like the same condo duplicated all the way up the tower, right? So like the 04 condo floor plan is the same on 6 as it is on 20. It's just a stack. So the 04 stack in 1212, there were 4 listed for sale. One on 15 went for, what did I sell that for? $850. And I sold another one on the 20th floor for $940. So like a $90K gap on the exact same floor plan. So like why? If you're pricing that just like comps and 5K per floor, like you're gonna miss it. You're gonna screw it up. But on 15, you're looking directly in the Capstar building across the way. On 20, you're completely over the top of it. So even though it's the exact same condo, same floor plan, it's a very different experience inside of it. Like it felt like a completely different condo. So when you're pricing something in the high-rise world, you got to take into account like how does it feel like when you're in it versus like the other things that are available or the last comp. And sometimes you don't have the benefit of it being on the market at the same time. So you got to like really like stare at the photos and be like, this looks the same, or this looks way different. Or
I think it's harder to comp condos sometimes because you're too easily misled. And I mean, obviously at Icon, same floor plan across the hall, $150,000 difference based on a view. Or sometimes there may be things that you don't see or not in MLS. So does it have 2 parking spaces or 3? Does it include a storage unit? Like those things are big money differentiators that just the sticks and bricks and the feet don't tell.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and so I'm trying to think of all of John's questions. So yeah, basically I kind of go through that whole process of like, how does it compare within the building? And then I also kind of have to have a general knowledge of like the ranking pecking order of the buildings. Like if I have 10 buyers, are 8 of them going to want to be in this building first? And then it kind of goes down. And that pecking order has become less clear as our markets become more sophisticated and we've gotten better things around the different buildings. But I always compare it within the building to start. And then I just look at like the price point. Like, okay, this is a $900,000 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Where else can I go spend $900K in a high rise? Okay, I can get this at 505. I can get this at Terrazzo. How do I compare it to them? Like, okay, I win regarding the building, but I'm losing regarding square footage. Or I win on the view, but I'm losing on the building. So I kind of try to like use all those different factors to figure out where to place that product for what is available within that price point. But generally speaking, you really want to look at views, floor plan, height in the building, and if there's like a distinguishable difference, like in that 04 unit, the one that looked at the building versus the one completely above it, you would never know that from a CMA. You'd have to look at the photos or look at them in person.
Yeah, you look at Viridian. I mean, you could be one unit down and you're either touching the LNC or you're right next to it and you're looking at Titans, right?
Yeah.
Devin hit it true too. How do you deal with appraisers screwing this up? Literally, like, what do you do to meet these appraisers and try to help them? I mean, do you meet most of them?
It depends. So appraisers have always told me when the agent meets them, they know you're trying to push the value. That's why you're there. So I've heard that from several appraisers. Like whenever the realtor meets me, he's trying to push the value. So I try to kind of like break that narrative from the beginning if I am trying to push the value or if I'm concerned the appraiser is just going to miss it. I always tell the appraiser like, hey, I know it's kind of annoying. My seller wants me to be there. And then I provide value to the appraiser when I'm there. I don't try to like convince them that the number should be X, Y, or Z. I make sure that they know the number on the contract. And then I try to provide value regarding like, so I just did this on a condo at 1212. I was like, hey, here's the comp that makes the most sense to me to give this the value that it got. And then here's a comp from like a year ago that I know you can't consider, but like it's the same price a year ago and our market's done better. So I'll provide that. Even though they can't put that in the report, it's still like market knowledge, right? Like this floor plan sold for the same price a year ago, like we should be okay. Or if there's upgrades that they need to know about, or if the view changes like we talked about, like appraisers usually like, they're as busy as we are, right? So if we can make their job easier, that's what I'm trying to do there. I'm not trying to like convince them or manipulate them. I'm trying to add value when I meet with them. And I'm trying to make it like a fun experience too. It's like, like if you got a bunch of appointments and one of your appointments like puts you in a good mood or like, is like just a positive person or forced to be around, like it makes your experience better, which then directly or indirectly is going to affect their report. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're an asshole when you meet the appraiser, they're not going to like try to make the numbers work for you if they need to. But if they really enjoyed their conversation with you or their time with you, they're gonna try to make the numbers work if they need to. It's tough.
Do you ever leave a packet in the building if you don't meet them there, of just like saying, hey, here's the 5 things of why this unit's different than the comps that I've provided?
Yeah, sometimes I'll like, if they like, because I had an appraiser last week that was like a COVID thing. He didn't want to meet anybody. So I just left him. I just did a printout. I'm trying to remember what I did. Oh, I had the seller, she did a bunch of upgrades. So I had her itemize her upgrades and add the value that she spent on them. So I printed those out and I was like, upgrades to consider. And then I printed out like 2 comps that I thought were like relative to the subject property. And I just left those on the countertop and told them they were there.
Yep.
And then followed up with like an email and be like, if you need anything else, like, let me know.
Yeah, we're doing a class next Thursday on appraisals, and I think it's I was writing some notes here on doing condos of even asking them. Make sure you get their information. They call you and ask you, "Can I get in at 1 o'clock?" And people say, "Yeah, that's good." Click. You will never find that appraiser's phone number or information again. They are like, so get their information and write it down because you might need to interact with them. And I think another thing is ask them, "Have you been in the building before? Would it be helpful if I send you instructions on where to park and how to get in the unit?"
Right.
Just something as easy as that, and having that ready. And I think would be nice for putting in the MLS instructions, right? For just those people, you have somebody, your assistant or someone create one for those buildings where it's hard to park. Cause I'm still like, do you just bet Uber to Encore when you show that damn place? What do you do?
So Encore, you can pull into the garage and you can hit the call box and you can tell them what unit you're there to show and they'll let you park in the parking space.
Boom. Price of admission, folks. Game solved. Game changer.
Yep.
I'll see you at 5:05 just for that reason.
You just pull an Encore, you say, "This is Ted Penn's with Village. I'm here to show unit 506. Can I please park in the parking space?" And they say, "Sure, it's unit."
No, they'll say no, but we just let Chad in. Follow him. Follow the sick black rover. All right, so what's the best needed service, Chad, in these buildings that isn't offered yet? If you were to bring on the hottest new amenity at a building that isn't offered yet, what would it be?
It's what Broad West and Four Seasons are attempting to do right now, a full service lifestyle connected to a hotel. So like it's like I was in Miami last week, I was at the One Hotel, which is a condo and a hotel combined, right? So all the services and amenities are mixed together. That's like the next step in Nashville's evolution of the high-rise world. That's like the next level that people want in terms of a service, is they want to be at the pool and order a couple of drinks for their friends and it gets brought up and then added to their HOA bill. Like that's like the next level, which is what Broad West is focusing on. And obviously what Four Seasons just does, that's just who they are. They probably will know you need a cocktail before you even know it. Like, they'll figure it out somehow.
Oh, they're like, "We've got your algorithm. We saw you swiping."
It's wild, man. Like the level of service in those places, like it's something to be learned. And like, I realize like places like One Hotel, they're really expensive, but you can like, if you stay there, like you will learn things about how to make your interactions with your clients better. And you will learn hospitality techniques, or like, you'll just learn how to treat people on a different level when you stay in those places. Like
that's a tax deduction.
What's that?
It's a tax deduction. I mean, that is truly, there is research to that component. So,
and they have such a high level of service and hospitality and how they treat people and how they like kind of interact with people. Like there's a lot to be learned in places like that. Like the Four Seasons get what they get for a reason. Like people feel really prioritized. They feel important. They feel listened to, and not like fake listened to, like legit listened to. You know what I mean? Like when we step out of ourselves and we truly listen to what our clients are saying, and we're not thinking about like the next thing that, like we're truly just trying to assess their needs. Like that's like real listening. And these places like show you how they do that. Like it's impressive. Every time I go stay somewhere like that, I'm like blown away. Like when I went the second day at One Hotel, I don't even know how they knew I was coming down the elevator. They must have a chip in your car that tells them you're coming down. Because when I walked up to the breakfast place, they're like, "Good morning, Mr. Wohlers. Would you like your same spot from yesterday?" I'm like, 1, how do you know who I am? 2, how do you know where I sat yesterday? It's like, I don't know how they know that shit. But it's like, it's amazing to see that level of service. And it translates to us as like care, right? But there's a system behind it. But the fact that they know those things, it translates as care. So like, and we can do the same thing with our clients, like just learning about who they are and the names of their kids and like things that they said to you in passing, like remembering those things and then bringing them up later. Like it's a different level of servicing people and being like their realtor. It's just a different level.
That is next level. You're next level, brother. Hey, it's we've gone over quite a bit here. Any other parting questions? Devin, of course, you can prime him for that. Are you buying at Broad West, Chad?
Am I buying Broad West? I might do an investment there. I'm not buying to live there because I do believe the pioneers get paid, and I believe that who buys there is going to make money. I don't want to leave the Gulch. I love the Gulch. I like the walkability of the Gulch, and I went through the pain of what made the Gulch a Gulch. I went through construction every morning with Capstar across from my condo. I went through the blasting of the W Hotel. So like, I'm going to enjoy that environment because my life plans for the high-rise world, I don't think extend another 10 years. You know what I mean? Like when I got into the Gulch at Icon, like I knew I was going to be in that world for like 10 years. So, but I think Broad West, you can make money there. And I think the services there are going to be what our market wants. So I'm looking at doing a 1-bedroom investment there. And I've just got to work the numbers on the pro forma to make sure it makes sense. But that's another thing too, when like your investors are looking at these things, like the numbers of the pro forma of like the rental game, sometimes they make sense or they don't make sense. So then you got to look at the appreciation part of it as well.
Yeah.
Like, do you think this building is going to go up in value? Because if the numbers don't cash flow, maybe the building though will appreciate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the things that I consider. But yeah, no, I'm staying in the Gulch. That's my home.
I like it. It is your home. You own it. And a couple other points to make. Annie had come in, and I think the Crane Watch is still in existence. I know that was another place for data. So if you're not looking at Crane Watch, you can Google that.
Yeah, I forgot about the Crane Watch. That's a good one.
Yeah, Crane Watch is a good one as well. And then she posted a hospitality TED Talk that I would encourage everyone to take a look at. I think I've seen that, but that's in the chat if anyone wants to grab that.
Ooh.
And I think we know your favorite building, Chad. You're living in it and appreciate the equity. Is that fair to say? 12-12 overall, just solid hitter, right?
Yeah, that's still my favorite building. I mean, Four Seasons is going to be incredible. I just don't know if the numbers are going to work.
Yeah.
For the kind of buyer, most buyers care about the numbers. The buyers that don't care
it's,
about the numbers.
it's one of those things. Everything works with enough time and consistency.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I think you've proven that, right? It's just you're consistent. I know in your marketing and your diligence with your clients. And I just want to thank you so much, Chad. This was really, really generous of you to share your stuff. You really have done a great job. You're a great human, and you run a great business. And I'm thankful that you're with Village, realigned again. So,
Right.
Any parting thoughts?
For me?
Yeah.
No, I completely concur. I love all you guys. I love our company, and we're the best company in Nashville with the best people. So
Yeah.
we get better by learning from each other. So I appreciate it.
Well, one thing I'll leave everyone with is take a note from Chad's book, and that is the business is not done in the office. Chad said he's at the Big V this morning at Village, and he is rarely there, friends. Chad's business, he does not have an office. You
Nope.
do have an assistant, correct?
Yeah.
It's
She
just
has an
you and
office.
her. It's just you and her, right? Crushing a mega business, but Chad's office is wherever he sets up that laptop or is present. And so that's one thing I know of you. You are always present where you go, and make sure you're being observant. You're not sitting down in your laptop. You are very much interactive where you go. So
Yep.
10-4, man.
Yeah.
Make it a great day and crush this fall. Don't let condos be scary, but be in the know. Don't represent us well and be a condo expert. Thanks again, Chad. Have a great one.
All right. See y'all. Bye.
10-4.